Okay, lesson 1 deals with your tanks. So when on the boat, if you were doing a 2-tank dive, let's say your first one is going deep, then your second one's shallow. Well, then you definitely want more air for that deep dive. What I didn't do was check my tanks first. And so this one dive, I went deep, and it was a pretty short dive because I was about 400 pounds of pressure less than the other tank. When I then went for the shallow dive, I saw I had all this extra air, and I should have used that second tank for that first deep dive. So that's the lesson to use there. Okay, on this lesson, it has to deal with my camera. So one thing I learned the hard way is if you don't allow water to get inside this here cover, you can get an air pocket stuck in there. So if you look at this picture I posted here, you see the little red dots. That's because there's water droplets inside here. If I had pulled this off and let this flood with water, that would have not been a factor. Same thing, this next video that you're going to see, there's kind of like this little waviness right in the middle. That's because there's air trapped in there. And on this last one, up on the top, you'll actually see like an air pocket. So my lesson that I learned is what I should do when I first get in the water is immediately take off the lens, the filter cap, then place it on, and then it's perfectly fine for going down in the water and not creating such problems. Okay, so this next lesson is more about being able to edit all my videos and knowing which day is which day or what dive is what dive. So what I could easily do when I get in the water, I could film, right, back at the boat, then start going in. Then I can put this on, right? So this would show me that's the start of the dive. And then at the end of the dive, I could always come up filming, then in my film. And so I definitely see the beginning of a dive and the end of a dive. And it just helps for the editing aspect. Okay, so the next lesson deals with this camera again. And that lesson is, if you need it, make sure you have it. Even if you think you don't need it, make sure you have it. So I went on the deep dive. If you watched, it was day 3, where the camera sounded a leak. So what you do with this housing unit, you open it, you stick the phone in there, you close it, then you have to seal it. So you would take this, do some pumps, it sucks out the air, you put a top on there, and then it's ready to go. Well, I ended up with the leak detected. So when I got back to the boat for the next trip, I told myself, I don't need this, so I left it behind in the car. So on that next trip, I could not use it to make sure it didn't leak and to reseal it. Somebody has since told me you could always try sucking the air out, and sometimes that will work. So if you ever think you don't need something, you probably need it. So always have all your gear with you at all times. Okay, on this one, you want to tether everything that you have to you. So if you drop it, like my camera, it's not going anywhere. I'm never going to lose it. Okay? When I go diving with this unit, when I jump in the water, I put this here so I could hold on to this, hold on to my regulator and my mask, jump in, then I can come through and then I'm ready to go. Okay. However, this one time coming back to the boat, we have a rope that you kind of pull yourself onto before getting onto the boat. You hold on to that, you can take off your fins and everything. Everything's great. However, on this one dive, as I'm pulling, other people's holding onto that rope perfectly went right here. If you can see this red, if you press that in, this comes off. Guess what fell? Yeah, it did that. Boom, boom, boom. Down, down, down it went. So on this camera, there's a little hook here. So you can hook this and tether it also to you or to the camera, however you want to do that. So you always want to make sure everything's tethered to you. This one, I still have to put the tether on here so I don't lose it. But just like with this, it has something to hold on to so you don't lose your gear. In a previous lesson that I mentioned is to tether everything, but that could be a problem too. For instance, I have my secondary light here. Normally, when I'm diving, I stick it in here. It's not going in here. But on the boat, this, along with my regulator, is just dangling free. So it could get kicked around, it could get damaged. Or in one instance, when I was down, I'm all hooked up, I'm ready to come out with the tank, this got stuck in the bench, so I couldn't get up. So it's like, what to do with that? One, I don't want my gear damaged, just laying around. So I was looking at different options to do, and Freddie over at Coral Key Scuba talked about this mask retainer. It's held on with Velcro, but what I can do, hook this here, I could take my regulator, stick it in here, I could even put my mask on here, hook it up. Now it's not dangling. This, one smart item to have. I had the misfortune of not having my primary dive light with me because I had mentioned how it fell. I lost it. Very expensive lesson to learn there. So I used my secondary light. Now my secondary light, I also use it during daytime dives. It's when I can use this to look underneath rocks or whatever. Thing is though, if you're going to do a night dive, the night before you want to make sure you change batteries, or like this one has a rechargeable battery, you want to recharge it. Because on my second dive on this last trip, my second night dive, as I'm going through, I noticed this will show, let's see if it shows now. See how it's green? That's mean it's good. It's perfectly charged up. If it's red, it means it's very low. And I ran the risk of running out of juice underwater. It's not a good position to be in. So therefore, if you know you're going to do a night dive, or you think you might be running low on your batteries, definitely charge them up. Definitely before a night dive. You don't want to be stuck out there without any lights. Wetsuit thickness. Here in Colorado, I tend to wear a 5 mil. That seems to work. Sometimes it can get a little chilly, but 7 mil for me just seems to be overkill. When I first dove Puerto Rico last year, I wore nothing. I just had a rash guard and shorts on. And after the second dive, I was getting cold. So I knew I wanted something. I ended up diving in Key Largo with a 2.5 millimeter wetsuit. It was probably too much. I was pretty warm, and there was a couple of times I actually dove without it. I forgot the wetsuit. And so I had to dive without it. But what was interesting about it, I was perfectly warm. However, if you watch these videos, you've seen there's a lot of jellyfish around, so it was unprotected. The next time with waters that warm, I would just have a full length rash guard. That would keep me plenty warm, but also protect me from the elements. So something to think about. If you're going out diving and the dive operation gives you weights, or if you are a dive operation and you're giving weights to a diver, trust that they're right, but verify. Always verify. So the way I dive, here in my BC, I got these 2 back pockets. I tend to put 2-pound weights here. And then the front, I put 4-pound weights. This works for me. Salt water, fresh water, and the wetsuit I'm using. Problem is, on this one dive, actually it'd be 2 dives, they gave me a 5 and a 3. So I put 3 here, put the 5 here without knowing it because I didn't verify. And so through the whole dive, I'm kind of like listing to the right. It's like, what the heck's going on? And it's at the end when I pulled out the weights and I looked at them, I saw what the problem was. Probably wouldn't have been a big deal if the 3 went here and the 5 went there or vice versa. But live and learn, right? That's why I'm doing this thing about lessons learned. So verify the weights that are given to you or that you're giving to a diver. For this lesson learned is it's about clips. So I use this light on the back of my BC for night dives. Works like this. I have this type of clip that I hook on there. But I don't really need this. Whereas on my SMB, I have this type of clip. But my SMB I keep down on my right side. If this came off and I try to put it back on, this type of clip makes it very, very difficult. So I'm going to switch this clip to this because I don't need this to be moving on and off, or I don't need, don't need this on and off. So I could use this clip. And then on the SMB, put this one where it's easy to just come in here and clip on. Lesson learned, play with your clips. One thing I never really considered that I learned from Ariel, that was one of the dive guides out at Key Largo, was what to do with the hair. What I tended to do, because I don't like it floating around, I don't like it getting stuck. I've seen people do different things. So what I tend to do, I tend to put it up underneath a swimmer's cap. But it's still kind of messy after the dive. I noticed Ariel was putting something in her hair. So I asked her, what is it? She said, it's just a leave-on conditioner. I like that idea. I'm going to have to check it out on my next dives.